What's up, guys? Hope everyone is doing well. In this video, I'm going to be going over the usual updates for Bitcoin. Go ahead and get it started here. Briefly, I want to mention on this 4-hour chart is I posted this on the community tab about maybe 8 to 10 hours or so ago, as Bitcoin was sitting right here at the top of this trading range, which I was mentioning could have been essentially a bearish pennant, although at this point Bitcoin is has broken out above that resistance. It's also currently with the 4-hour candle, about 3 hours left, inching above the more macro trading range that I've been showing you on this 4-hour chart. Going all the way back to around really the beginning of March, we saw these fake outs towards the bottom here, but roughly this range has been respected. But as I was saying, Bitcoin is pushing above the median. For example, last time we saw this was May 15th as Bitcoin went to retest the highs up around 72K. But if Bitcoin can continue on a shorter time frame to gradually move up or even rapidly move up, totally could come down and test what was prior resistance, maybe in somewhere around 61.5, 61,000. This also lines up with this vector volume trading range here as well. On top of that, along with breaking these trends, we see Bitcoin pushing above the 50 EMA, the 800 EMA. Good to see. Also with the 50 EMA band as well. After that, likely this choppy range right here would be next in lower time frame, somewhere around 64.3, maybe up to around 66,000. Generally getting above this rough band right here up to 2, 3, and 400 EMA is going to be very important. And then right now, 70,000 is about the biggest level to get above on really any time frame. Psychologically, number to be looking out for. Also just key resistance, generally speaking. Now for this daily chart, this is somewhat similar to the weekly chart that I went over in the last video, which I'll be updating in later on. But we can see going all the way back to the bottom, approximately 15.5 thousand back in November 2022. We see the RSI in the most highly oversold territory, right above the orange range. We fast forward to the next area where we see this. We see this in August of 2023 as Bitcoin setting this low. Also, if we take the time measurement tool, we measure it from the lowest close to the lowest close. We've seen 294 bars. And if we do the same thing, Bitcoin is sitting right at that same range, which is what I showed in the weekly. Along with, if we see again, just a reminder of these RVIs that have been going over recently, correlating and finding confluence with the RSI, and also other indicators being with RSI heavily oversold. The RVI is showing that Bitcoin is very undervalued. This time confluence, RSI, the RVI, as well as the similarities in the way that the pattern itself is moving, where we see this kind of move initially of Bitcoin after it set its low towards the upside, setting really these kind of three main peaks leading into the final low. See something similar around here. Really what I was pointing out in the last video. But really, this chart here shows it off another daily, where we see these two uptrends with each of these black lines right here, beginning back in January 2023. This was the main trend line that I was going over and pointing out back during this early beginning stages of the bull market that we've been in so far, the Bitcoin's been in. And we see these three touches here on this trend line, just as we've seen here recently. With each of these blue circles, I'm pointing out the fact that Bitcoin was seeing a hidden bullish divergence from 2 to the point when, after these three bottoms were set, also these three highs right here as well. Overall, again, just to point it out, basically seeing this bounce of an M along the trend. We see one more move up into some sort of double top. Then Bitcoin trades below the trend, ultimately to find a bounce and then move back above into a longer term uptrend. Seeing basically the same thing right here as Bitcoin moves 1 to 2, goes into 3, comes up, it's traded back below, along with seeing a similar, the price is in an uptrend, going up, setting a high, or rather a low, higher low, and then also currently just barely a higher low. The RSI is trending downwards. Again, we see the same thing from 2 to the end right here. as well for the prior instance. If we look here at the MACD, we see it also curling up. It's in the white stage, could flip bullish. It also could just amount to a nothing. Bitcoin can definitely go lower, as I've been saying, somewhere around 50 to 54K, or around approximately 43,000 is the lowest I think is reasonable at this point. But overall, lastly, we can see here on this daily chart where Bitcoin's coming down and testing the 200 EMA, very important moving average. You can see, again, going back to these areas where we see Bitcoin bottom out in the past, local lows. The 200 EMA is roughly respected. Here is for 3 as well. Bitcoin went a little bit below here as well. So it could totally do that. Maybe Bitcoin will come down back to around 56.5 again and have a bounce around there, going a little bit below 200 EMA. Outside of that, this 2-day chart, really generally the same thing as the daily chart, pointing out more of these instances where we see the RSI in these heavily oversold territories. Each of these 5 instances, also on the RVI, we see highly undervalued for Bitcoin as well. What's interesting about this is that on this 2-day chart, we see the RVI went lower than it did back when Bitcoin was at around 25.5 thousand in August of 2023. And it's also even lower than, or rather, basically, the RVI on this 2-day chart is just as undervalued, if not a little bit over, or more than being undervalued than when Bitcoin was at the bear market low back in November of 2018. So if anything, I think that's further affirming these overall trends that have been going over on the daily, especially then factoring how the 4-hour looks, that continues to move towards the upside here and have constructive movement towards the upside, going to further validate what I'm showing in these higher time frames and all these confluences. But with this RVI being volatility based and it being just as undervalued as it was going all the way back to 2018 at the bear market low of around 3.2 roughly thousand, then I think that definitely means, assuming that Bitcoin is going to enter an uptrend, there will be a rather large swing in volatility. I think it will be greater than what we've seen so far in each of these other uptrends, these main uptrends. So from here all the way up to here, as Bitcoin sets its double top, and then sets 2 local lows and afterwards, and then finds its way back into an uptrend. Same thing here, but it's more volatile. We're seeing this similar sideways action with these 2 local highs, potentially 2 local lows, and then we'll then spring back up towards the upside here. At this point, like I updated last time around, I think Bitcoin's more likely to top out more towards somewhere roughly in this zone right here. But we could definitely see Bitcoin, I think, very reasonably move quite quickly over the next 3 to 6 months into this range right here, from, like I've been saying, anywhere from around 150 to 230,000 approximately. Looking at this 4-day chart, right now Bitcoin is finding a bounce with respect to this resistance I've had on here quite some time in the past videos. We also see it currently, at the very least, finding what it seems to be finding support along the fast DMA of the 350 DMA band, which I pointed out a very interesting, that the going all the way back in every single bull market, we see this fast DMA, the white line right here, being respected once the bull markets really began and is starting to go very parabolic. We see it going all the way back here as well, just to re-show those. So this currently seems to be lining up very nicely, along with the 1.618 as well for this macro fib retracement, as I've been going over. But the main thing that I want to update for this chart is this RSI down here up here with the Bollinger Bands. We see down here that Bitcoin has just recently gone below, as it was meeting this fast DMA daily moving average. Bitcoin was going just a little bit below the Bollinger Bands. Last time that happened was going all the way back to January, towards about the last week or so of January, as Bitcoin bottomed out here, which again goes back to each of these bottoms I was pointing out, these lower time frame charts, the daily and the 2 daily. Now we're seeing similarities on the 4-day. If we go all the way back to August of 2023, as Bitcoin was ending this first uptrend in the bull market, setting this sideways range into this final low right here, then moving higher. We see the Bollinger Bands. The RSI went below the Bollinger Bands. We see the blue dot printed. That's what we actually have not seen so far. There hasn't been a blue dot printed. If a blue dot gets printed, then that to me will further show that Bitcoin has met the local low and is actually going to continue to go up here. Last time, see, going all the way back even further, this trend applies going back many years, even to go all the way back to right here, May of 2022. We can see, in this case, it's not necessarily what I'm trying to point out in the current bull market. Obviously, this was during the bear market, but see the RVI, or the RSI rather, go below the Bollinger Bands as the local low is being set, and it just went sideways. Ultimately, it came back down, but we can also go all the way back to, this one's more significant for what I'm trying to point out, but if we go all the way back to May of 2021, as Bitcoin on the RSI was dipping below the RVI, or rather the Bollinger Bands on the RSI, we see this candle right here wick all the way down basically to where Bitcoin had bottomed out at. So this signaled, whenever we saw this RSI go below the Bollinger Bands, the low was essentially already known due to this major wick and that highly volatile candle. We saw the same thing here happen with the March crash at the very end of it. We see it right here as well, going back to September 2019. As this local low was set, it continued to go a little bit lower, which I have been saying, Bitcoin could definitely trickle down lower. Well, but the last one I'll point out, going all the way back to November 2018, we see the RSI go below the Bollinger Bands as the bear market bottom was being set in. But outside of that, this median right here is going to be very important to get up above. Right now, if we zoom in very closely, you can see the RSI is basically right at the exact same spot that the Bollinger Band is at. We have not seen a break above yet. Seeing that break above, and then seeing, again, like I said, a little turquoise dot, bullish dot being printed, will further affirm that Bitcoin is seeing this bounce along. Like I've said, the 1.618 fast EMA, and then also further validating these. And I pointed out on the daily and the 2 daily, moving into this weekly, which is the highest time frame of really this entire trend that I've been pointing out and going over in this video. This bull market that we've seen since approximately 15.5 thousand. Again, we see the 41 bars, which is same thing as these 294 measurements that I had here on the daily. And as I said in the community tab post, I was waiting for the weekly close, which Bitcoin saw not too long ago, roughly about 45 minutes ago or so. So far, we can see the RSI is bouncing within this 2-year support that the RSI has seen. Quickly, just to reiterate this, it goes all the way back to June 2022 as Bitcoin was setting this bear market low again. We see something similar here. We see major bearish trend, this downtrend, and really the brunt of the bull market and was prior bear market rather. Lead into this first low of the double bottom. We see this M get printed as it leads into the second low, and then price continues to go higher. Like I said, I was pointing that out on this 4-hour. We saw this M as the center of the double bottom of pattern right here. But nonetheless, price is going lower. RSI is trending upwards. We see this bullish divergence. So now for 2 years, as we see each of these waves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the bear market found, first off, this right here would be the first. This would have been the best area to buy in the current uptrend. In the current bull market, this would have been the second best area to buy. If you bought here, you caught this entire first run. If you bought here, you would have caught this entire second run. And now, with all the similarities I've been pointing out, this weekly seeming to find a bounce here, the price as well as on the lower time frames as well, setting this sideways range here, ultimately finding a bounce into the next move somewhere up into this range right here, like I've been pointing out, more towards, I think, November, December, maybe even early January. The Bitcoin could meet somewhere around 227,000, as I've been saying, is the sweet spot. That's what the historical Fibonacci retracement or extension rather has been predicting, as I've been going over for many months. But overall, before I go to the last chart, totally could still continue to go lower. This trend could definitely be broken, but for now, I think it looks very strong and very reasonably valid to end up playing out. But lastly, I went over this on the monthly in the last video. This, again, on the bottom, this main indicator I'll be going over is the SMI, Stochastic Momentum Index or indicator. Very, very useful for pointing out and denoting where Bitcoin's topping out in the bull market and in the bear market. And what I wanted to point out is on the indicator is we look here, we see this highly oversold or undervalued range, highly overbought or overvalued range, and then we see this median right here. That's with respect to the upper bound of this lower portion and the lower bound of the upper portion. But we see this median that I pointed out here where Bitcoin is breaking prior all-time high on the price right here. See the same thing right here as well, where Bitcoin's breaking this median as it's breaking the all-time high prior to it every single time. So far, Bitcoin's seen the white line move above, and the black line is also moved above the upper bound of the median, which this actually wasn't like this before I started recording the video. It actually just updated itself to another 2 months. It's interesting to see. So what I was actually going to say before it just updated itself was that we're waiting. Bitcoin needs to, final thing is to see this black line move above this upper bound of the median right here, these yellow dotted lines. But so far we've seen that, and this is actually a 2-month indicator trend that goes all the way back to November 2012 that has been accurate, as you can see, every single time in these regions right here, pointing out whenever we see both these lines cross above this median, the bull market is definitively underway, has been underway, and this is every single time lining up with when Bitcoin is at the prior all-time highs and breaking those prior all-time highs, continuing to go higher, as we have seen Bitcoin doing for the last number of months, trading sideways at and slightly above the all-time high of around 69,000. And then lastly, I just want to again point out this 2-monthly trend. It's on the it's also on the monthly, they're higher, the highest time frame charts really, that continue to support around approximately 230,000 at highest. I mean, really, like I've been saying, could go up to 250, 260,000. Well, but I think that 227,000 is really what I'm just looking at, mainly just for, satisfactory purposes in terms of just somebody who is watching the charts basically every single day and has a number of ideas and predictions and projections. And if something plays out, which is so critical to the overall progression of Bitcoin in terms of the its macro movements and the way that it's structured and the phases and the cycles, as I point out in my videos. It's just going to be very interesting if in around November, December, January, upcoming in the future, that Bitcoin tops out just anywhere around 220. Actually, it's 226,000. I was going back and looking at it earlier, and it's 226,000 rather than 227,000. But anywhere, just somewhere in that small ballpark of like 220, 230K if Bitcoin tops out there, I'm going to just be very pleased and satisfied. But anyways, that was all that I wanted to go over in this video. So again, as always, hopefully enjoyed. And this is meant to be financial advice. But all being said and all gone over, I hope you all have a wonderful day.